When we wrote the show How Jeff Bezos Became the Richest Man in the World, he was worth a staggering $143,810,231,459.23. His wealth fluctuates a lot, but some people keep up with it. And one source tells us right now that he is worth $158.39 billion. We can't be too sure how accurate those figures are, and if he's made around $15 billion in a few weeks, we'd be surprised. We're also told that his divorce is going to make a rather large dent in his wealth, and he may have to settle for a few spots down on the world's richest people list. What we can say for sure is that he's certainly not average in this respect. But how average is he in other respects? Mr. Bezos was born on January 12, 1964. That makes him 55 years old. How many other folks in the USA are around his age? Statistica tells us that another 10.7% of people in the entire country are male and aged 55 to 59. As we've said in our other shows, around 49.5% of Americans in total are male. As for being born in January, astrologically he fits the Capricorn personality quite well, as they're supposed to be hardworking and very ambitious. As for that date, we can't find how many people in the world were born then back in Jeff's day, but if you look at the data from 1994 to 2014, the most common day to be born was September 9th. Yet people are making babies in the winter, but not having them as much. Between those years, 10,943 people were born on Jeff's birthday, which was ranked 248th for the most common birthday. From what we can see, there are not that many January babies in the USA on the whole, with July, August, and September being the most common months to have kids. So, Mr. Bezos, you don't have a common birthday, and so are not average. While we know he's white, so he joins another 72% of white Americans. But what about his ancestry? Okay, so we did a bit of spying and found his family tree. We know his father's side was the Jorgensen's family, but his mother's side were called the Geis family. We don't actually know where they came from, but if we look at the name Jorgensen, it could be Danish, Norwegian, or North German. Geis is likely English. If he's German-American, that puts him in one of the biggest ancestry groups. It's thought that around 46.4 million Americans share that heritage. As for English Americans, we're told that about 24.8 million Americans will claim this. But the problem here is that many Americans who just say that they're American are often English American. It's probably the biggest group of white Americans. There are a few Norwegians too, but not that many Danes. What we can say though is that it's likely that Jeff joined some big ancestry groups. We'd ask him a question about his ancestors, but he's not picking up the phone right now. You might know that his mother had him when she was just 17, and that, as you can guess, is on the young side. But looking at statistics, his mother wasn't that young when he was born. Those stats tell us that these days, most women have babies from 19 to 33, but in 1980, women were having kids much younger on average. His young mother got married, but that didn't last long. We're told that 42 to 45% of American marriages end with divorce, so Jeff doesn't exactly come from an unusual family. She got married again, and we're told that 36.8% of single mothers do just that, so he was not too unusual in that aspect. As you know, Jeff was a whiz with computers from a young age and very good at creating gadgets. He graduated with flying colors from school and from university. That doesn't make him unusual, however, because around 83% of Americans graduate high school, but much fewer graduate university, and that number is said to be around 33.4% of people according to the US Census Bureau. The thing is, Jeff graduated from an Ivy Leaguer university. It's said that in 2018 there were 280,000 applications for those schools, but if you look at the acceptance rates, they're between around 5 and 10.5% depending on the school. This makes him decidedly not average, but not as unusual as the student reported in the Baltimore Sun in 2018 that got accepted to all 8 Ivy League schools. Suffice it to say, Mr. Bezos was a book-smart kid. So now he's a grown man. What does he look like? Well, it's said he's 173 centimeters tall, or 5 feet 8 inches. That makes him a bit of a small fry, as the average height for a man in the USA is 176.1 centimeters, or 5 feet 9. His current weight is about 75 kilograms, or 165 pounds, which makes him quite the proportionate fella. As you know, the USA doesn't do proportions very well, so in terms of average weight, he's small. The average weight for a man in the USA, if he's a non-Hispanic white, is more like 90.7 kilos or 200 pounds. That seems like quite a lot. But we checked a couple of sources and indeed, 90 kilos is the average. Jeff is certainly a lightweight, but still, he looks like he's in good shape. One of the things that might shave off a gram or two is hair, and Jeff doesn't have any of that stuff. Well, around 80% of men his age are what you might call balding. They have thinner hair. Let's be honest, if you have your full mane at 55, you are unusual. But how many men have that shiny egghead? We're told that around 25% of men will have male pattern baldness, meaning they might have those bits on the side, but up on top the lawn has been replaced by asphalt. He kept some hair when starting Amazon, but there was only a tuft. He looks much better now that he's gone full throttle with the Remington. Before we get into money matters, let's talk about Jeff and his sexuality. We know that he's straight, and so he joins most other Americans. In fact, not as many people as you might think identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. Gallup in 2015 said those folks only number around 3.8% of Americans, so Jeff is just as average as most other Americans. But one thing we do know about Mr. Bezos is that he has had an affair. The Institute for Family Studies tells us that in the USA, around 25% of men admit to having relations with another while married when they're in middle age. It was around 15% for women. We could say that Jeff's slightly not average here, but we're also told that Mr. B sent pictures of his naked body to another woman via video. In fact, it said a tabloid newspaper got a hold of that content and tried to blackmail Bezos, but he took it on the chin. Hey, he is the richest man in the world. He doesn't care if his Amazonian snake makes it to the front pages of some terrible rag. But how many men do these kinds of things? Are many guys in the "here's a picture of my phallus" club? Well, we just can't find a number. But Psychology Today tells us that it's not that uncommon at all. It says there hasn't been much research into this, but as men often perceive women as wanting the same as them, men, we are told, like to see women's parts in photos. Then they think the women will want the same. Turns out, not always to be the case. Men, we're told, in general, get off on exhibitionism way more than women. They get a kick out of it. So, Mr. Bezos, all we can say is join the club. But what about his massive piles of cash? We told you how much he has, but when did he start having it? Before that, we should tell you, as we have in other shows, that if you have a college degree on average, you'll be getting paid around $50,000 a year. The median net worth in the USA is more like $44,900 per adult, while CNBC reported in 2018 that the median American household has $4,830 in a savings account. 30% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved. Well, we're told that Mr. Bezos was a late starter because he didn't make his first million until he was 33. But he was certainly good once he got out of the blocks because he was a billionaire just 2 years later. In fact, Forbes says in 1997 he became a millionaire, and in 1999 he was listed as having just over $10 billion. Let's also now remember that Jeff got his start in the working world as a McDonald's staffer. Yep, he was a burger and fries man a long time before he started filming his junk and getting people to sell theirs on his website. He's not even average though, because it's said that 1 in 8 Americans will work in McDonald's in their lifetime. Some people are skeptical about this number, but it's nonetheless been cited about 100 million times. Anyway, if you're eking out a living hoping one day to get out of the 30% at the bottom and save more than $1,000, we'll just rub some salt in your wounds now and tell you that Jeff Bezos earns $8.9 million an hour, a bit better than the average McDonald's cheese slice placer, who gets around $8 an hour. He gets around $2,500 for every second that goes by. So by the time you've said, "Oh my God, I don't believe it," he's made around $10,000. Forbes says there are around 540 billionaires in the USA, and we know that Jeff these days is making around $1.5 billion every week. So if you earn a decent crust and you get your $50,000 a year because you have that degree, and let's say that you earn that a year from the age of 20 to 65, you'll have earned a total of $2,250,000 in your entire lifetime. You've had a triple bypass, 2 divorces over working late, several DUIs after fighting with your psychopathic bosses, and to top it all off, you don't even like your job. You only did it so you could holiday once every 3 years in Fort Lauderdale and run that temperamental Honda. We should tell you then that Mr. B makes what you did in a lifetime in approximately 15 minutes. That's less time than your boss gives you to have a coffee in the morning, and Jeff gets free pina coladas when he goes to Florida. Well, we'll leave it there. How do you think you compare to Jeff Bezos? Tell us in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, What If Apple Was a Country? Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.